Welcome in, everybody. It is Andrew Coppens, publisher of Talking 10 and, of course, Talking Badgers, coming to you with the Badgers Hangover. Normally, this is a written form, and if you've been following for the past few years, then you know that this is a written thing. And what else is the Hangover? Well, basically, it is our opportunity to take a step back from the heat of the moment, if you will. And it is a chance for perspective rather than reaction to take hold. But adding to the mix this season, what we're going to do is, as we go through the week, we give you a series of predictions. We talk about the things that we're going to be watching, the 5 things to know about the game. We're going to incorporate those things into our reaction to the game, and week 1 is a perfect example of that, because the 3 things that we were watching for was the young Badgers secondary. It was Cole Van Lanen and John Dietzen, and that race for the starting left tackle position. And then finally, it was consistency from Alex Hornibrook. Would we see it? That's where we're going to start on the Hangover for week 1. Yes, we finally saw more consistency from Alex Hornibrook. And while people want to dwell on the negative, and there were certainly some of that, and we'll hit on that in just a little bit, there was a lot of positive to take away. Yes, Western Kentucky's secondary is no Miami and the chain gang or the turnover chain or whatever they're calling themselves these days, but he was 1 yard shy. Alex Hornibrook, 1 yard shy of his career record. He threw for 257 yards, following up the 258-yard performance he had against Miami in that Orange Bowl. So as far as consistency goes, you can't get much more consistent in terms of the yardage. Yes, you can nitpick, and I'm going to nitpick because he also started off pretty slow and had some questionable decision-making early on in this game. There were opportunities where he could have just thrown the ball away, instead threw the ball up for grabs. Those are the things that we have been harping on for the past year and a half, really, that we'd like to see eliminated from Alex Hornibrook's game. Ultimately, he needs to be the player that understands that living to play another down is more important than making the spectacular play. Yes, it would have been great if he hooked up with A.J. Taylor on the number of passes that were ill-advised. Yes, it would have been great if he hit Jonathan Taylor on a wheel route in between 3 guys from Western Kentucky. But all of them could have also killed off scoring drives. So hopefully he starts to realize that let's not make the big and dumb play. Let's make the smart play and hopefully get this offense moving forward faster, because it took a while for the Badgers offense to click, but boy, when it did, was it fun to watch. It was super balanced. Alex Hornibrook was good in the second half. Jonathan Taylor went off per usual. And overall, you have to like what you saw from the offense. Speaking of that, let's go forward to the guys in front of Alex Hornibrook. And of course, that means John Dietzen versus Cole Van Lanen for that starting left tackle job. What do we take away from that? Not too much, honestly. The only thing that I'm really going to say about this is the fact that, well, John Dietzen got injured, Cole Van Lanen came in, and you didn't really notice that either one of them weren't in the game. And what I mean by that is that they seem to be even in the competition. And when I look back at this game, what you did notice is that Wisconsin, unlike last season, was a dominant left-running team. Maybe that's partly because they moved Michael Dieter back inside and he's more comfortable at that guard position. Or it also could be the fact that Cole Van Lanen and John Dietzen are really good run blockers. Either way, take a look at that second Jonathan Taylor touchdown and you'll see that Cole Van Lanen and Michael Dieter, they paved a hole that anyone could have run through for that touchdown. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor did the good job of going up that hole that was basically from the end line to the hash mark on the left side of the field, and then bursting through the secondary. But you get the point. So the good news is that both of them looked good. In John Dietzen's case, it was, small video size. But in Cole Van Lanen's case, it looked like he belonged on that field against anybody and can dominate in the run game. The one caveat is this. The Badger offensive line has got to learn to pass protect better. Yes, Alex Hornibrook has clearly demonstrated that he has figured out how to step up in the pocket and how to feel pressure a lot better than he did even this time last season. but he was running for his life way too often. They have got to figure something out on that offensive line, because what was on that field in week 1 and what was put on film was not great. I'm sure that Joe Rudolph and Paul Chryst are going to harp on that for that Badger offensive line, and we'll see when they get tested by different looks on the defensive side of the ball by different teams, how that progression happens. So that was my takeaway from the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, it is very clear that this is a plug-and-play type of a system, and that Wisconsin has a recruiting pipeline that, one, understands what type of a player is effective, what type of athlete they want to recruit, and most importantly, trusting in the system. Jim Leonard threw out 3 first-time starters in the secondary, and that was kind of the group that was in the spotlight, under the microscope, or whatever cliche you want to use, going into the game. Coming out of the game, 181 yards against the team that was, and has been for a very long time, a very pass-orientated offense. That's a check. An interception? Check. Scott freaking Nelson? Double check. Yes, I am absolutely in love with this guy's style and this guy's production. 9 tackles, 2 pass breakups, a quarterback hit, and a near interception. This guy can do it all. He played around the line of scrimmage. He played center field. He did everything that the Badgers have asked of previous players that made up that position. And for me, he might be the Badgers' best player in that secondary. In fact, I'm going to mark this down on video. I think that at the end of the season, Scott Nelson is your Big Ten Freshman of the Year. I think he's the Freshman of the Year this week already, but we'll see what other people put on film. I was super impressed by his overall play, but I was also equally impressed when I watched this game back by Caesar Williams and Faion Hicks. Yeah, Western Kentucky did a good job of moving the ball somewhat in the second half, but what they didn't do was score. And what Faion Hicks did was intercept a pass, and that was a very veteran move for that interception. He snuffed out and read a trick play and made sure that the trick play didn't work. That's good news from a very young player. More importantly, what they did is they kept Western Kentucky in front of them. They didn't give up big plays. They let them have the small to intermediate stuff, and then let the pressure up front work, and then let Scott Nelson do his thing. I was super impressed overall. We'll see how this group looks against more competitive teams going forward, but in terms of a debut, I can't think of a debut going any better than it did for that young Badgers secondary and for this 2018 Badgers team. 34-3 over Western Kentucky under the lights of Camp Randall. Week 1 is a victory, and it's in the books, and that is your Badger hangover for Week 1. I'm Andrew Coppins. Follow us on Twitter at Talking Badgers. Follow me on Twitter at The Coppins Show. Have yourselves a good rest of the Labor Day weekend, and we'll be back with you with some video work and, most importantly, the written format for your viewing pleasure over at wisconsin.talking10.com.